Off the Beaten Track. Vít Pohanka takes you away from the crowds to the city's hidden gems.
Hello and welcome to Prague Off the Beaten Track. Today I'm taking you to Prokopské, údolí or the Prokop Valley, which is a significant natural and historical area in the southwestern part of Prague. Geologically speaking, it's part of the Czech Karst, this geological region or area in the heart of Bohemia. And if we say it's a karst area, it means that there's a lot of limestone. And where there's limestone, there used to be quarries. So this part of Prague was known for centuries as a place where there were quite a few quarries. And today it's a natural reserve that you can walk through. And that's what I'm going to do just now. I'm following a kind of hiking trail that's got green signs. It's a beautiful day. I have to say that I'm really lucky. It's February, but the sky is completely clear. It's cloudless, and it nearly looks like spring, even though it's still deep winter. And I planned my walk. The whole valley is actually surrounded by built-up areas. But in some places, you wouldn't know that because you just don't see any housing on the hills around you. It's a really beautiful day for walk. There was a jogger who just passed me, so obviously this is quite a nice place to jog or to bike. But I'm here on a weekday, so I have the valley nearly for myself. And I like that, I have to admit. I downloaded some information from the Institute of Planning and Development of the city of Prague. There's some useful information in English there, but also the National Heritage Institute. So I'm just skimming through it, and it says that the valley's landscape is characterized by limestone formations, cliffs and plateaus, which are the result of sedimentary processes from the Paleozoic era. Over time, erosion by watercourses carved the valley, creating its distinctive topography. And then there's a bit about archaeology, and it says that evidence of human settlement in the Prokop Valley dates back to prehistoric times. Archaeological findings indicate that the area was inhabited during the Stone Age, with artifacts such as tools and pottery shards discovered in various sites within the valley. Then later on, throughout the Middle Ages, the valley and its surroundings were utilized for agriculture, hunting and resource extraction. You probably just heard a car passing by. The path actually leads along a road, but the road is not very busy. And now I see there's a little lake that I'm going to have a look at, and then I will continue with the history of the Prokop Valley. So I took a little diversion from my trail, from the path that I'm following, and I came to this very nice little lake, and it's surrounded by cliffs, and obviously it was a quarry. So I'm coming back to the information that I retrieved from the official sources, and it says that especially in the 19th century, as Prague it wasn't a boom town, but it was definitely growing very, very fast. A lot of lime was needed for the construction. So that's when the activity here was probably most intense, very active. The quarries, as I learn from the text, were gradually abandoned in the 20th century. Again, it's a beautiful day, and the valley now is forested, but there were times, as I learned from the text, when it was not forested. It was just cliffs and kind of pastures, but now you're basically walking through a forested valley on both sides. And as I'm walking up the Prokopské údolí, perhaps it's a good time to retrieve some information about how Prague grew in the 19th and 20th centuries. The information is from the city of Prague, so it's official. And what I learn here, that already in 1784, that means in the 18th century, under the reign of Emperor Joseph II, the four formerly independent municipalities of Malá Strana, that's the very popular part of Prague now, with tourists, I mean, Nové Město, New Town, Staré Město, Old Town, and Hradčany were merged into a single administrative entity. So that was kind of the basis of modern Prague. Later, in 1850, the Jewish quarter known as Josefov, well, they call it the Jewish quarter, it was really a ghetto, was incorporated into the city, administratively speaking. So it lost its independence. And even though it doesn't mention here the official information, it was basically all demolished. And there was new development then in the second half of the 19th century. The first suburb, Karlín, was established in 1817, which it says marked the beginning of Prague's expansion beyond its historic center. Then came the 20th century, and the most substantial consolidation happened in 1922 when the Greater Prague Act was enacted, and this legislation unified Prague with 37 surrounding municipalities that used to be independent, including Vinohrady, that's where Czech radio is, Žižkov, Smíchov and others, and it significantly increased the city's size and population. As a result, Prague's population rose to approximately 676,000 residents, and we are talking here about the 1920s. In other words, what I get from that is, for example, New York was consolidated, I think, in the 1890s when Manhattan, Brooklyn, Bronx, Staten Island and Queens came under one administration. Well, the same process basically happened in Prague in a smaller scale in the 1920s. And that was really the largest consolidation or the largest enlargement. It was the most significant kind of consolidation or enlargement of Prague in the 1920s, even though later on, under communism already, I think Prague enlarged again, but that was not as kind of significant, not as noteworthy as the enlargement in the 1920s. So, to sum it up very quickly, 18th century, Prague becomes Prague basically in the center as we know it today. In the 19th century, the new suburbs emerged like Karlín, Libeň, Žižkov, etc., which were absorbed by Prague in the 1920s. So we can say that the Prague as we know it today roughly comes from the 1920s, even though some of the outlying suburbs were merged into Prague a little bit later. What I haven't mentioned is the fact that this path that I'm following, or the trail, because it's a road basically, but no unauthorized vehicles are allowed here, it winds through this valley along the Dalejský potok, or the Dalejský stream. And what you can hear probably in the background is a little weir here. And now you can hear a train, because there's not just the road, there's also a railway line that leads here. But this is the first train that I see or hear in about half hour, so it's not very busy. And you can really feel like in the middle of forest, because on both sides, on the one side actually, I can see cliffs, the limestone cliffs. On the other side, there's just a slope, which is wooded. I see some rocks there as well. But I don't see any buildings, any houses, even though I'm completely surrounded by the city. But you wouldn't know that if you if you walk here. That's why it is quite popular. I might have mentioned that, especially during the weekends, you know, there are a lot of people here. But on a weekday like this in February, there's nobody but me and birds, an occasional jogger or someone on a bicycle. Beautiful. It's really beautiful. It's unbelievable. Nature reserve, not in the middle of Prague, but surrounded by Prague. And I came to another part of, another section rather, of Dalijský potok. The water is so clear. It looks completely clear. I wouldn't be surprised if I saw trout fish or something like that here. But no, I don't see any fish. But it's just amazing to see such a nice piece of nature in the city. I came now to a place called Holyně, and it's really like a small village in the middle of nowhere when you come here, because you don't see that there are housing estates on both sides of the valley. Here it feels like as if you were somewhere deep in the countryside. By the way, the name Holyně comes from holí or barren, which means that what is now wooded area on both sides of the trail or road, because there's road here as well, used to be pasture. And at one point in the 19th century there were 1,200 sheep, as I read from the information desk or table that is placed here. And obviously there used to be a mill here as well. So this was a small village which was outside of Prague, but now it's part of Prague 5. I'm walking down the street, which actually feels like a country lane, and it says it's named K dobré vodě, to the good water, Holyně Praha 5, Holyně Prague 5. And it's really amazing. It's worth seeing. I highly recommend it that you go down this trail or up this trail. As I mentioned, Prokop Valley is full of abandoned quarries, limestone quarries. And limestone mining also destroyed quite a remarkable 120-meter long cave in 1890, when people probably weren't so bothered to protect the natural features of this landscape. Because before it was destroyed, the cave, people found remains of mammoths, bears, rhinoceroses, bison, reindeer, and even early human bones were found there. There's also a legend that Saint Prokop or Saint Prokopius lived here as a hermit, and he was battling devil in these places. And I think it's noteworthy that this valley also played a key role in geology in the Czech lands, thanks to Joachim Barrand, a French engineer who was exiled to Bohemia and who is a very interesting personality. I think that I will come back to him in one of the future episodes. So he was this Frenchman who in the 19th century lived in Prague for considerable time, and he was wandering around the country, and he started describing the geology of the Czech Karst that I mentioned before. Basically, he described the history, the geological history of the region between Prague and Plzeň, and among other things, he gave name to one part of Prague which is called Barrandov. Again, that's for one of the next episodes. Monsieur Barrand is credited with describing well over 3,500 extinct fossilized species that he found in this area. So, I think it really shows that this valley is a kind of fascinating mix of history, geology, and a legend that I mentioned about Saint Prokopius, and it's all within Prague. I've now reached the end of my walk, having traveled from Praha Hlubočepy to Praha Řeporyje. The distance, when I look at my e-watch, was about 7 kilometers or a little more than 4 miles. I think it was a very pleasant and easy hike. It took me quite a long time, but that's because I stopped in many places and I was taking pictures and I took some diversions. But if you'd like to explore this trail yourself, you can find practical information, including a map and photographs, on the Prague of the Beaten Track page at radio.cz. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Vít Pohanka, and until next time, here on Prague of the Beaten Track. Naslyšenou.
Prague off the beaten track. Vít Pohanka takes you away from the crowds to the city's hidden gems.